In the name of the living God, the Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer. Amen. What are you doing here, Elijah? Well, he's hiding out in a cave. He's also a refugee in another country. He has traveled 40 days and 40 nights to get there. He is seeking refuge because he has made an enemy of a person whose name will be very familiar to you, Jezebel. So I believe the way when we talk about Jezebel, we think of a woman of loose morals and licentious, something like that, right? Is that what you're not, if that's the Jezebel that you are familiar with? That's not the case. Jezebel was the wife of King Ahab in the northern kingdom, and her great crime was that she was not an Israelite. She worshiped Baal, and she induced Ahab to become a worshiper of Baal also. And Elijah took them on. And he took on all of the Baal prophets. He killed 400 of them. There was killing in return. And Elijah, dispirited and frightened, fled to another country to get out of her way because she has threatened to kill him. So that's Elijah. But that's why he's there. But it does not answer God's question. What are you doing here? In fact, it is such an important question that God asks it twice. It is such an important question that it is how I happened to choose my own patron saint. And I did so even before I knew what a patron saint was. In case you don't know what a patron saint is, a patron saint is the spirit that guides and protects a person or a place. And groups and people choose their patron saint. Just like in your case, St. George is the patron saint of your church. Now, my patron saint is Vice Admiral James Stockdale. I told TJ and Philip that I had a surprise for them in this message. You will not find Vice Admiral James Stockdale in any calendar of saints for any church, but he was a great American. He received the Medal of Honor for his service in Vietnam. He was the highest ranking POW in the Vietnam War. He was there as a prisoner for 7 years. He was tortured many times and permanently disabled because of it. And in spite of all of that, he maintained the morale of all of the other American POWs in that prison in Hanoi. But none of that is why James Stockdale is my patron saint. I didn't even know any of that about him at the time. James Stockdale became my patron saint when he became Ross Perot's running mate in the 1992 election. How many of you saw the vice presidential debate in that year? Raise your hand if you saw that debate. And when it was his time to talk, he got up and he looked into the camera and he said, "Well, I'm Vice Admiral James Stockdale, and I suppose all of you are asking, who am I and what am I doing here?" And when he said that, and I looked at him, I realized that he was actually also asking that question of himself. And my heart went out to him. And I realized that that was just about the most important question that we can ask of ourselves, especially if you're an existentialist. Who am I and what am I doing here? You can ask the question existentially about your whole life, as I did that day, or you can ask it as a member of this church. Who are we and what are we doing here? It's an important question for churches also. It is important because people join churches who know the answer to that question. Who are they and what are they doing? It's also important because those two questions cover two of the transitional tasks for congregations in an interim period like your own. Discover your new identity. Who are we? And commit to new directions in ministry. What are we doing here? And for that reason, I'm looking for a few of you who would like to join me in exploring the needs in this community around you, which will help you understand better or come to an understanding of who are we and what are we doing here. Do you think I'm wrong to ask a few of you to join me in seeking to learn about the needs in the community around you? Do you think I'm wrong to ask that? Or perhaps you are afraid, like, how would we do that? Are you afraid to step out of that which is familiar? Well, I would ask you then to consider Peter in the gospel lesson that you've just heard. Peter took a giant step out of the familiar when he stepped out of that boat to walk towards Jesus. When he left the boat, he was leaving everything that he understood and knew into unfamiliar territory, into troubled waters. He was a fisherman, after all. He knew boats. And he didn't want to do it on his own. He wanted to be told to do it. He wanted that moral support of a command. He said, Lord, command me to come to you on the water. And when he did, he didn't walk very far, did he? So what happened? Jesus reached out his strong hand and caught him. And what does Jesus say to him? You of little faith, why did you doubt? That's not a scolding. That's not what people in another church I served called the holy hand slap. That was the sound of a proud teacher, proud of his pupil for taking a step and trying. I know that because Jesus knew that there were headwinds. He knew that. And he knew that it's not easy to have faith when the wind is against you. Look what happened to Elijah. But that is what Jesus wanted Peter to learn. I know this because if you look closely, Jesus didn't calm the wind until after they got back in the boat. He wanted Peter to learn, have faith even in a storm, because a storm is what we've got to expect. I had a wonderful boss once. I had taken a job that I had striven to get. I desperately wanted that job in a new field. And once I got it, I became terrified because I felt that I had no idea how to do the job. And my boss said to me one day, "Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to screw up. Because if you try, you can't fail. And I'm not going to let you screw up." That is what Jesus is saying to us. Amen.